Hey, Flames fans. Kyle Lewis here with your other host, Brad Burud. Welcome to another edition of Flames Unfiltered. Brad, how do we even begin? How do we start the show?
Oh, we went from happy last week to probably angry this week. You know what, though? I talked to you the other day, and I said I'm tired of being crabby and angry about stuff in life, and like, you know, we got a lot of things to be thankful for and stuff. But I'm gonna get my vent out real quick here. And then I'm going to try to be as positive as I possibly can during this episode, which I don't know how the hell that's going to work. But you know what I'm tired of? And I'm sure you heard it on the games too. I'm tired of Millen and Abbott and Megan Mickelson for sure making the excuse that the Flames are tired all the time. Tired. They're tired. After a horribly unprofessional effort in Florida, they said, yeah, I think the Flames are tired. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, they just had 2 weeks off, have played 2 games prior to that. How in the hell can you be tired? It's not like they're flying commercial. Like, I don't get it. Like, is saying they're tired just a professional excuse that you have to say to be politically correct because you're with the team and you just got a crappy lack of effort, or a team that's out of shape, or I don't know what it is, but I'm tired of hearing the statement, they're tired.
I'm not really sure what to do with that. I am similarly tired of excuses like being tired. I guess I find it lazy, and that's one of the complaints I have about hockey media in general, is I do often find, even more so as the years go by, that a lot of the media loves to grab low-hanging fruit as excuses or talking points. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, they're tired. It's like, well, okay, so let's say they are tired. Are they tired because, you know, we heard that there was a bit of the flu bug, like the one I had that hit Team Sweden, so maybe Rasmus Anderson brought it back to the team and they're all kind of sluggish and not 100% healthy? Because that's different.
That's different, though. That's different. That's not tired. That's unhealthy.
No, but that requires critical thinking. Do you think about what could possibly be causing the slow pace of play, or the poor decision making, or the complete inability to manufacture offense? Like, it's just, you know, it's the same thing as like, oh, like that guy works really hard when he's on the ice. It's like, okay, and the results are terrible. What's your point? Like, they love to use surface level excuses in hockey media, I find, and it's just so basic and boring and uninsightful. That's what tired is to me. It's like, I'm tired every day that I dry air. Guess what? Nobody cares because it's just my cross to bear. I'm got a lot going on, but so do lots of other people, right?
I went to work today. I was tired. Nobody cared. I couldn't work any less. It just was what it was, right? I don't know. And you know what? Like, I don't want to make this a negative show because, I mean, the team, let's be honest, the team has been struggling since we last talked. I'm trying to be more positive. I think life lately has just been filled with negativity, and I think it's a waste of energy to be like that. So I'm trying to be better, and I'm trying to find the positives. But you know what? When I do this show, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm being honest about the team a lot of times, and sometimes it's going to be good, and sometimes it's not going to be good. And I think we saw some bright spots this week, but I think we saw some real troubling negative spots this week. And
boy, howdy.
Yeah, and we touched on it. You touched on it a second ago. The scoring, I mean, it's out of control. I mean, you look at this. We talked about clarity last show. Clarity. Well, how clear when we talked today about the playoffs. And I hate to say this, is we salvaged a point yesterday. I don't know how the hell we did that against Carolina.
Dustin
and it puts us, and it puts us into a playoff spot. But I sit and I look at this team and I think, for God's sakes, a playoff spot.
Playoffs.
Yeah.
It's funny. You said out of control, and I thought I got that. I don't know if you know the Crocus song, Out of Control.
Yeah.
I just got it stuck in my head for like a second, and most for listeners would have never heard that song, let alone the rest of the planet. But that kind of made me laugh.
I mean, after 4 games, we've got 3 of 8 points. There's 12 available on this trip. We both said we needed 6 to be happy. It's going to be a push against Philly and Dallas to get 1.5 points, don't you think?
Yeah. It's like, despite their best efforts to eliminate themselves in the playoff picture, they're still in it.
It's a little different view though this week. Because now I look at it as a 5-team race because Utah is 2 back of Calgary, St. Louis is 1 back, Vancouver's tied with Calgary. Like, it's a different picture. It's a much different picture. Would you agree?
Oh, tremendously so. Tremendously so. Like, I don't know what to make of all this. Like, because everything has been like, ever since I went against Washington, it's been so difficult for this team. And like you, I'm trying not to be too negative about it, but I mean, just the complete inability to manufacture any kind of offense. And in these games, like the first period against Carolina, whew, man, that was rough. And the game against Florida was very
12-1.
Yeah, and that one shot was not a very good shot. It was from Anderson, I think, towards the end of the period. It's really, really hard not to get negative, but it also leads to a lot of conjecture and commentary that's just utterly fruitless. So it's like, oh, like, you know, all the team tank stuff comes back up again. It's like, oh, they need game breakers. Well, Calgary has enough skill. They can't be this bad offensively for any length of time. Like, now they've struggled all year to score. I get that. I mean, yeah, they need somebody that can, obviously, like an elite talent on offense, like any team would like to have. But still, it's like you watch them play, and it's like Morgan Frost has been really good. But even he, like, he can't, you know, him getting poke checked the other night, for example, like, he just can't seem to get anything going. And it's like the team's still in the playoff picture. So up until they're like 6 points out, this is how it's going to be.
I had a question for you. Like, Michael Backlund hasn't scored since January 23rd, and I'm not here to rip on Michael Backlund.
You can go right ahead.
I'm starting to wonder a little bit about if this is less about the players and maybe more about a system. And I know that Ryan Huska has expressed many times that for the team to be competitive, they have to play this tight checking defensive system. But when you're rattling off 7 goals in 5 games and in your last 5 games and 18 goals in your last 10 games and just a 3-5-2 record in the last 10 games, and you're still hanging on to a playoff spot, I start to wonder, like, is this a product of the system and not so much a product of the players? And if that's the case, something's going to have to give eventually, right?
Well, you would think. It's difficult to imagine in a sense because it's like, well, this has worked before. It's never worked particularly well, mind you. The reality, I think, for the Flames is that they're not defensively. They're too much of a ragtag bunch to not play the way that they play. You know what I mean? In terms of, like, you know, the back checking and the way they kill penalties, and like they have to be somewhat conservative because they're going to get exposed otherwise. But that also is very restrictive to offensive-minded players. Now, some guys have been downright terrible. Yegor Sharangovich being top of the list right now for me, and Michael Backlund. To echo what you kind of started to say, but you were also a little more polite maybe than I'll be. But like, this has been the worst stretch of hockey I've ever seen him play. Like, he's been absolutely abysmal, and he's next to my list of guys that should be sitting a game.
Well, we do know that he was injured prior to the break, but we don't know now. And I think he's been better, but boy, he's still not doing what it's to do, right? I mean,
no, the puck's not going in the right direction. The Flames are constantly having to defend and then hope that a random 2-on-1 break might produce a goal for them. Like, they're not playing hockey that's conducive to winning whatsoever. The only thing they're doing is white knuckling, thinking, holy shit, I hope our goalie can make the next save too. And it doesn't work. Now, to answer your question more pointedly, whether or not people believe it's a systems problem or a personnel problem, something has to change. That much is evident, because you can't, as a professional hockey team, if the worst team of all the teams can't be damn near shut out for 3 straight games. It can't happen. So that necessitates some lineup changes. They tried a handful of them against Carolina, for example, but I think it involves things like maybe trying Rory Cairns, bringing him back up, shuffling the lines. I mean, even Huberdeau, Cgy, and Coronado. I like Cgy and Huberdeau for the most part, but maybe a shift Coronado to a different line with Frost, who's been probably their most dynamic player, at least in terms of generating opportunities. But whatever the case, the deadline's Friday. So what this team's able to do with what they have is about to change very quickly. Now, we'll get into that here very shortly about the deadline and what that looks like. But in any case, what the Flames are doing is failing miserably, and they have to make some changes, whether that means systems changes, more line adjustments, more guys in and out of the lineup. things need to change because this road trip started off wonderfully and has gone to hell very quickly.
But I sit and I look at this line juggling, and we're taking a page out of Jeff Ward's book where we got a friggin' new line changes every single night. And I sit and I look at it and I'm like, I can shuffle the Rooney, Klapka, Lomberg line all I want, and it's not going to produce goals. I can shuffle all these around, and I don't think any of them are going to be a potent line. I don't see it. I don't know how they're magically all of a sudden going to be like, oh, that was the remedy.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's not. None of those things are going to be conducive to fixing the offense problem. Now, Klapka generated a decent chance for himself the other night, but that line is never going to do that. I mean, them having a good game like the one against Washington, it's like you can't count on that, right?
Like, I think, Klapka brings energy, and I think he's a fine player. But I always look at things, and maybe I have a bad perspective on this, but when I look at our roster now, I don't look at us as like a true contender. Obviously, I think we can all agree as a fan base on that. But I sit and I look at our roster, I'm like, okay, is he a piece of the future? And I don't know that if Ryan, or if Rooney and Klapka are on our fourth line, I don't know that we're successful, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be critical of just those two players. I could probably say it for multiple things. I think we've got a lot of guys playing probably over their head too, especially on the defensive side of things. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but at some point, something's got to give a little bit with some offense, right? Because where it stands right now, I mean, we're one goal away from being the worst offensive team in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny. Even going into the show, I knew this is gonna be a struggle too to talk about this because like I don't really know what you do with a lot of this. I mean, I think it changes the trade deadline strategy, which at one point was probably a little bit more stand pat, but now I think it's more of a we need to look at selling because whether the team makes the playoffs or it doesn't, based on what we saw, and I guess we may as well get into this a little bit now, based on what we saw like with Seth Jones, I mean, there's a market for some of these guys where you can get a pretty decent return. I think we need to take advantage of that.
I kind of, and tell me if I'm wrong here, I kind of looked at Seth Jones's contract as kind of like Nazem Kadri's. It's like, okay, this guy is a decent player, but he's grossly overpaid. Mm-hmm. And I shouldn't even say that, but you know what? I take that back because I don't think Nazem Kadri is grossly overpaid. I think Nazem Kadri doesn't fit Calgary's plan because of his age and probably his age only, because he's probably been our most offensively dynamic player that we've had this year. But I see the Seth Jones thing and I see the return they get, and I'm like, boy, is it time to maximize some returns?
Well, the thing is when you pay particular attention to a team because you're a fan and you analyze them and watch all their games or most of them or whatever, you see a lot of the warts other fan bases don't see. And you probably know where I'm going with this, but it's come up a lot lately. And we'll continue to do so right through Friday. Rasmus Andersson has a reputation he does not deserve right now. Because since that 5-0-1 start, which Robert Munich had talked about on X, he's like minus 26, like worse than the team. He has been abysmal. He does not create offense. He's not been particularly good defensively at all. But because, much like Jones, people have a certain opinion of him. And Jones, I have questions about Jones, for example. I don't think he has a great attitude. I hated what he said about his teammates. I just don't think he'd do that.
I hate his attitude. I couldn't agree more, and I'm not so sure I like his style of play anymore. I thought he was really good in Columbus. I did. I thought he was great in Columbus, but everything I've seen since he left Columbus has been not great.
Yeah, and I know people that were, in Columbus at the time, and they didn't think a whole lot of him as a teammate necessarily, right? So when it comes to things like, and not to say anything about Rasmus Andersson, because I do think he's generally pretty well liked. I mean, when you have a market perception of what something's worth or what a person is worth, a player in this case, and the reality, like it, I know it, all of Flames X knows it. You go all in on cashing out on that asset. So we go from a conversation a few weeks ago, and this is where I'm at with it now, and some people may feel differently, but based on the estimation of what his next contract would likely look like based on this perceived value, you have to trade this guy and move on.
So, Kyle, I heard some numbers last night on Flames Talk that made me cringe. They were saying that if the Flames got him for 8x8, they would be happy. They think that the Rasmussen, or they think Anderson's camp is going to be looking at double-digit 10.
How can they possibly justify that?
I have no idea.
It's not like Erik Karlsson has the point totals to possibly justify it. He has not. Like, no, like go away. No, I mean, I wouldn't pay him a dime over 5 right now. Wouldn't even consider.
I mean, I think I would over 5.
The way he's played the last 30 games, not a chance.
You know, is he another Elias Lindholm, a guy that a year from now when he's gone, we're like, oh, thank God. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I did see. I mean, I can't help but feel after seeing what the rate for Jones was, I'm like, man, maybe you're right. Like, maybe it is time to cash out now.
If that's what the market is, and we already know what people think Rasmus Andersson is, or what he used to be, or what he might be again, especially based on the depth of our defensive prospects, just cash out. If he rebounds somewhere else and he does like the Sam Bennett thing, and people are like, oh wow, he's way better, why'd you let him go? You live with it. It didn't happen here, so why? Like,
how long? This is something that is an interesting question for you. So how long have we had Rasmus Andersson as a stud in Calgary, and how long have we had him playing the way he is now? Like, I think he had some really good stretches in Calgary, but I wouldn't say that he's been over the top good and consistent his whole time here by any means.
No, and I think he got a big bump in his numbers and in his play from guys like Gaudreau when he was having a success here, right? Like when the team was successful, like he was, he's not moving the needle like Mackenzie Weegar. I like his game all around. Even his bad nights are generally, livable. Mm-hmm. But Anderson, he hasn't been as great as people think all that often, unless the team was doing really well, right? He seems to be like maybe he's more of a passenger. And oddly enough, he's actually the player featured on my Flames calendar for the month of March. So, and again, like I like Rasmus Andersson, but I don't know where the swagger went. I don't know where the offensive creativity went. I don't know where the defensive acumen went. He has been awful, and I mean, I can't believe the Calgary media hasn't been talking more about it. I don't get it. They're talking more about the contract he's going to get instead of the fact, does this guy even deserve another contract here?
He seems awfully protected right now, and everything I've ever heard out of the Flames camp is that he's a great teammate and a great guy and a guy that wants to stay in Calgary, and that's fine. But like, it's got to be for the right price tag, right? Like, Connor has got a plan, and we need to stick to this plan, and we need to be smart in this plan. And if that means getting some assets for him, like, let's do it while we can get the selling's high, right? And and to flip the page, I also feel that way for Kadri. I mean, Kadri's been really good, really, really good lately, but he's in year 3 of 7 on a contract that's going to be paying him $7 million until he's 38 years old. That does not fit our plan 4 years from now, 3 years from now. That does not fit our plan at all.
Nope, not at all.
So as much as I liked what he's brought to the table the last 2 years, to be honest with you, I did not like his play the other night when he freaking turns and gets knocked down and then lays there instead of getting up and shutting his mouth and playing hockey. I think he's been a dynamic offensive player for this team the last 2 years, and I liked what he's done. I just wish he was doing this at 28 at 24 instead of 34.
Yeah, but and again, I mean, Conroy has an obligation to the team he claims he's trying to build to explore these things. I mean, and the same thing goes for Michael Backlund. And like, he's been terrible, but he still has a reputation of being a lot better than he is. If somebody's willing to pay you maybe a first for Backlund because they think he's going to help him with a cup run, then you got to listen, right?
Well, I know, but at least Backlund, and the only defense I'll have on this one is, and I'm not saying I totally disagree with what you just said. I think you listen, right? But we have a longer period of Backlund being good than we do bad.
Oh, for sure, but he's getting long in the tooth, right? And all I'm saying is like,
But
hey,
he's making
if
he's
somebody
costing us
comes
so much
at
money.
you, if somebody comes at you with a very generous offer, you take it. I'm not saying anybody will. I don't have a
Yeah.
reason to believe that they will, but if it's a prospect and a first or something foolish like that, then okay,
So do you feel the same about Blake Coleman then?
absolutely,
Because
100%.
I think you'll get a bigger offer for Blake Coleman than you will a lot of these guys.
And I think so too. Realistically, I think we can all expect. And it's a weird time. Like, there's a rumor right like today about the Flames acquiring Brandon Carlo, which makes no sense to me at all. Um, you
No,
know,
we have
I
enough
don't.
right-handed defensemen.
We have enough right defensemen. He gets his head caved in most of the time when he's on the ice. So I don't even know why they're looking at him. But ultimately, what we can expect will happen is that the Flames will generally stand pat on Friday. They'll make a couple moves around the periphery. They may move a body out if it's a really good, asset or a couple of assets coming back their way. And we're going to carry on, or we're going to be in a dogfight for playoff spot until I'm going to say the beginning of April. And maybe, you know as well as I do, our shows week after week are like super positive, negative, positive, negative. Not so much the show itself, but
No,
the
but
team's performance.
the team's performance last week we were on cloud nine. This week we're just like, oh, this is not good. It's just a back and forth juggling act, and it's frustrating, and I agree. Like, we can't continue. We need to. I was gonna give you some crap this week because last week you said that you're going to the Toronto game on the 18th, and that you're excited
17th.
because 17th, because and you're excited because it's going to be an important game. And this week when we're watching Tampa, and I sat, and I'm not joking, Kyle, I sat and watched that game, and at no point did I think we even had a prayer scoring a goal.
Yeah. Well, and you can kind of tell, right?
Yeah.
Like when there's no net drive, there's no like guys aren't shooting when they should. They're overpassing. And we've seen a lot of it the last 2 games. It begs a lot of questions. One of the questions that I have, and I'm going to ask you this now, and it's, if you're like me, you don't have an answer for it yet. But watch like the chase videos on YouTube and a lot of the lock, the post games, the pre games. I don't know right now if Ryan Huska is the guy to lead this team through the rebuild. Now, I do know that the players really like him and they seem responsive with him. But I think now this is the point where as fans we really start to question, and some already have for quite some time, but this we're starting to raise a question like, is this the guy that will take this team to the next level? Because right now they're incredibly inconsistent. The penalty kill has been marginal at best all year. The power play has been generally decent, but goaltending has saved them so much and has made them look so much better than they actually are. How would you evaluate Ryan Huska at this point? Do you see him being a long-term coach of this team, or do you think he's getting near the end of his rope?
Well, I mean, I think you're going to give him some time. Like, I don't foresee us changing coaches in this season or next season. But I am also shocked that this fan base has kind of given him a free pass thus far, like a big free pass. And I'm not saying that like this is all pin this on him. I'm just saying that like he doesn't get questioned at all. And there is a lot that he probably should get questioned on. And it seems like it's been a free ride. And I am a little bit afraid that I know why the players really like playing for Ryan Huska, because it's like a country club atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a team win a Stanley Cup with a country club atmosphere. Now, there's teams that love their coach that will run through a brick wall for their coach, but it's not a country club atmosphere. And I worry a little bit sometimes if that atmosphere is that. And of course, we're not in the room, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've seen some things that it's like, okay, so let me ask you this. I can't remember if it was it Lomberg, or I probably should misspeaking by saying this, but somebody was joking in a post-game interview yesterday that it took 9 periods. 9 periods is our lucky period to score. I don't know what that would have went over with Daryl Sutter. I'm not sure what that would go over with Paul Maurice. I'm not sure what that would go over with a lot of really good coaches.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth between like it's good to make light of a situation because you can't let the heaviness drag you down, but also it's like, guys, this is pathetic.
Yeah,
this is pathetic and inexcusable, and it's quite frankly embarrassing. So, Because it's not like any one of these goaltenders has to stand on their head in terms of the opposition. They've all been good. Kochetkov was good. Vasilevsky is always good. Bobrovsky is generally always good. It's like, but they weren't Dustin Wolfing us, right?
No,
because they didn't have to. Like, and that's going into this game in Philly, and then of course in Dallas, which is another tough one. And Philly could be too. I mean, you got to believe Jacob Peltier is going to come out against his old team. You hope that Frost and especially Farabee do the same thing against the Flyers. Kuzmenko's probably a bit more of a wild card. But anyway, the Flames need a statement game. And as I've said repeatedly this season, ever since the 5-0-1 start, they have not put together a meaningful win streak, which is exactly why they cannot gain any ground on the opposition. They can't separate themselves from the Canucks. The Canucks have no business being near a playoff spot. They traded one of their star players who's single-handedly dragging the New York Rangers into the playoffs so they could keep their other star, Elias Pettersson, who has been, without question, the worst player in the league relative to his salary.
He's taking all the bad signing heat off Huberdeau in the Pacific Division.
Huberdeau's having a pretty decent year. He'll never work 10.5, but the Pettersson contract, it's like, anyway, I don't want to make this about the Canucks because it's not conducive to anything. It's just to say that you have a team that is not good enough to go to the playoffs, and the Flames, with the goaltending they're getting, should be able to scrape enough of an effort together and enough offense together to win more often than they don't to some small extent, and they can't even do that. And it's like, okay, like, well, now what? Colorado's floundered this year, LA at times, and now it's like and now it's just like Calgary and the Canucks. Like, it's just,
that's rough.
Now Utah is basically, they're back in the picture.
They're probably the favorite right now. They're playing the best hockey of the group.
Yeah. But there's no separation. It's like why do the Flames seem content to just be in a dogfight all year? Like, it's because when you watch them play, like that first period against Carolina was absolutely abysmal. And they took guys like Braden Pahal out of the lineup, and it's like, okay, well, maybe he's kind of banged up because how he plays, but Solovyov, thankfully, he had a rough outing the game before. Like, they're making some adjustments and changes, but the guys that are on the ice just don't seem that invested in the game. And right now, the two worst ones, the two Swedes, it's Anderson and Backlund.
Yeah.
Well, these guys are contributing nothing, and I don't understand why that's so okay, or why they're like, I haven't seen either one of them have their ice time axed, and they both should.
And you know what? And I agree. But in no way me and you have both been very strong-hearted about this since the beginning. About, like, I don't want us to tank, and I'm not asking us to tank. I'm asking us, like, we got to be realistic on what we're doing here. And I don't think that trading Anderson or trading Kadri like deviates from the plan. Like, I think you need to keep some veterans, i.e. probably Backlund, Coleman. I mean, I think we have probably 5 core veterans, and I don't think trading 5 of them makes any sense, but trading 2 of them to gain assets might make sense.
Sure.
But I'm in no way throwing in the towel here, and I guess that brings us to our X factor, and I'll let you touch on it this week, because, I am not for tanking.
No, exactly. So Brooks Foster, at Brooks Foster 10, tweeted, all you Flames fans actively cheering for losses are pathetic. Go touch grass. Obviously, you've never been a competitor in your life. Athletes work their way to the highest level by competing. They don't compete to lose. Absolute joke. Now, the reason that I picked this, and there's a few different reasons for it, but above all else, it's just the hard realization of what it should be like to be a professional athlete. It's like, okay, enough of the tank talk, and like, it's going to be what it's going to be. We have a lot of money tied up on a lot of players. Like, they're trying to drag this team into a playoff spot, even though lately it looks like they're not trying that hard. It's like, there's so much parity in the league. The reason I like that X Factor so much, and thanks Brooks for that, is that, okay, like, enough with the rhetoric. If they end up, botting them out, losing a bunch of games, it is what it is. But, like, you can't count on that. You can't expect your players to be okay doing that.
And even Kadri touched on it this week too. That, like, you can't. What did he say? Something about losing is for losers, basically. And he's right. I mean, like, I don't want that. We need to do something. In this deadline, I sit and I look, and it's like, okay, I look at our needs and tell me if I'm wrong here. Obviously, the number 1 scoring center, preferably right-handed, is number 1 need, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then we need a left shot, top 4 defenseman.
Yep.
We need a 4th line center, and we need a scoring winger. And all these need to be under the 26-year-old to stay within our plan. I don't think on Friday, by Friday, we can find any of those.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't. And now today I hear rumblings of the Flames probably trying to move Miromanov. I think that's a good choice. I think that happens. I don't know. I don't know what you get for him. Probably nothing.
Well,
I don't know. Very little. And I'm not trying to, I mean, he hasn't brought what we expected.
Yeah, unfortunately, that turned into a bad trade, the Hanifin trade. I mean, I also felt that Hanifin was pretty overrated by the time he left town, but I mean, the return was never thought to be great, but it's turned into, much ado about nothing, quite frankly. And with, as far as Dalamir Manoff goes, it's like, hasn't been fit here. He's not getting the opportunity. Give him a chance somewhere else. And I mean, realistically, all you're really going to do in this case, as you just alluded to, is you're going to free up a roster space for somebody younger in the organization. That's all you're going to do.
Yeah.
It's not like there's going to be a useful defenseman coming back.
So Braden Pahal gets scratched yesterday, and I was a little puzzled by that.
So was Uncle Kurt.
Well, yeah, then Uncle Kurt put on there that what did his tweet say? Something about Pahal sitting means he's getting traded. And you know what? When I saw that, I was like, no. And then I started to think back to a conversation I heard on one of the other hockey, I believe a Daily Faceoff show, that the fact is that at his price tag and him signed at 1.87 for the next 2 years, and what he's brought to the Flames would probably be a defenseman that teams are looking for. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, but this is exactly the guy we're looking for. He's 26. He's, 25 right now? I'm like, this is the guy we're looking for the future. I really hope we don't move him.
High demand, but no, I don't think there's any desire to move him. I think Joel Hanley is going to be dealt because he's really played himself into a lot of teams who would like him for the playoff, conversations. We'll see what happens though. But yeah, I think, with Pahal, Pahal's been so steady, it was unusual to see him scratched.
I got a question for you though, Kyle. So JJ Rayner put on X the other day, and this is one of them I was looking at for an X Factor also. And I thought it was a valid enough question that I wanted to get your opinion on it. He said to all the Vladar haters, you need to watch this Florida game and the Capital game. There is no way we trade this guy. A Wolfman and a Darth Vader tandem is a path forward. And at first I was just like, I never get to, I haven't got too deep into the goalie thing. I think we've learned this year, and I think it's been our biggest blessing on the Flames, is we've learned that we have a starting goalie in Dustin Wolf, right? I think we can all agree on that. And I think that's a huge blessing that we know that. But I started to think about this, and I thought, Cooley has struggled since his concussion. He hasn't been as good since All-Star break, albeit he's still got a 9.19 save percentage, which is very, very, very respectable. But maybe Dan Vladar and Wolf is a tandem for the future. It's a safer tandem than going with Cooley just because we don't know Cooley at the NHL level. I'm not saying I want to do this. I'm just saying that maybe it's the safer one and a respectable one, because I think Dan Vladar is not a starter in the NHL. I think he's a very respectable backup.
He hasn't been for much of the year, but he's obviously changed that narrative lately. So it's that battle between, are you willing to trade Vladar for like a third round pick? Or are you hoping you get something more?
I don't think you get more than that.
Oh, I don't think so either, unless somebody has an injury and they're really desperate. But he has played significantly better, but he's had so many chances to solidify that backup position. I'm content to let him go at this point. Whether that means Cooley is a backup or somebody else, I'm just, yeah.
And believe me, Kyle, I'm not losing sleep over it, because I think you can find an adequate backup. Like even if we trade Vladar and Cooley doesn't work, I'm not losing sleep. I think we can find a backup for Wolf. I do. I do. There's always goalies out there like that. But it did get me thinking a little bit. And quite honestly, I probably wouldn't find myself too upset if they did re-sign Vladar. Now, I don't think that'll happen, but I wouldn't.
No, I'd be fine with it. At least he's played himself into a position of being valuable to the team, either as a tradable asset or as a backup goaltender, right? So,
Goalies are tough to judge, though, because they are really streaky. And I think that's a case for most goalies. I think there's a few outlying factors, like probably Vasilevsky, Hellebuck. You don't hear about them being too streaky. But I think it's pretty common for most other goalies. And has Vladar been lights out for us his whole career here? No, he hasn't. But he's had some really good stretches and some not so good stretches. But I don't know if we escape that ever with a backup, right?
No, but you don't. I don't think. And as far as the goaltending position, by virtue of what it is a streaky one. Unless you're an elite goaltender, a Hasek, Burud, or Joseph Belfour, Lundqvist. Jonathan Quick for a long time. I mean, he'd be cool as a backup to Wolf, just because Wolf would love that, right? And he's still putting up. Oh, he's getting up there, but he's still putting up really good numbers as a backup in New York.
He's amazing. So,
yeah, but and it's like you just said. I'm not that worried about the backup position going forward. We have so many other holes to fill. Goaltending has been the least of our concerns. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I think Rooney's even played well enough that teams might look at him for a playoff run just for depth. I mean,
you think so? Because I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah, it's just you're trading for whatever you can get. But I mean, there's a bunch of peripheral pieces in the Flames that could be moved. And to be quite honest, if I'm Craig Conroy in terms of sticking to my plan, and also he made that deal with Philly to try and give this team a boost. It hasn't really worked yet. Farabee, I think, is still trying to find his way in Calgary, especially.
I'm going to be patient on that one because I do think that will work in the end.
Oh, I think it will too. But all I'm saying is it's like, okay, this team's had ample opportunity to show Conroy that they're going to be a playoff team. They haven't proven that at all. So I think he doesn't owe them anything. And guys like Nazem Kadri would obviously be upset hearing me say this or be upset if Conroy did it. But it's like, hey, you guys had lots of chances to do this, but you didn't show up to play enough nights. You blew those back-to-back games in St. Louis. You blew, a good chunk of this road trip, and not just lost the games, but emphatically lost the games and showed you do not stack up well at all against the world beaters of the East. So the Carolina Hurricanes, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Florida Panthers. We'll see how they do against the West, i.e. the Dallas Stars. They have not matched up well against the Colorado Avalanche, the Vegas Golden Knights. They're getting dummied by the teams that win.
Yeah, you're right.
That's very, 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 very telling to me. They're not on the same level, so let's not pretend that they are and go acquire a piece expecting to make the playoffs. It's not going to happen that way. They're going to sneak in. They might win a game or two or maybe even a round on Dustin Wolfpack. It's certainly possible because he is that damn good. But let it play out. If you get, like I said earlier, if you get really, really good offers and some key players like a Coleman or a Backlund, maybe a Kadri or an Anderson, you take it.
So let me ask you this. We're just, 4 days from deadline. Do they move Kadri? Yes or no?
No.
Anderson?
I wish, but no.
Coleman?
No.
Backlund?
No.
Mirmanov?
Just because I wanted to happen as Mirmanov, yes.
I'm with you. I feel the exact same on all of them.
Okay, so let me ask you a few. Joel Hanley?
Yes.
Braden Pahal?
No. I took all the good ones, Kyle.
Yeah. Well, you basically did, yeah.
Dan Vladar?
Yes.
You think he gets moved, huh?
Yep, I do. I think he's played well enough. I think some teams looking at their goaltending thinking, oh, we're one injury away from being in big trouble. Here's a guy we can pry to Calgary for a very reasonable cost. And I think based on Cooley having a one-way next year, based on the goaltending market not being entirely barren going forward anyway, I think he gets moved.
Well, the road trip continues. We head to Philadelphia on Tuesday night, Thursday in Dallas. That's a long road trip. Oof. And then back home Saturday night for
It's
Montreal.
The Habs. Yeah.
Montreal, Hockey Night in Canada. I believe probably the early game since we play the Habs. That's usually the way it goes. That'll be perfect for you, Kyle. And yeah, I don't know. But you know what? Before we go, I got two things. First of all, I want to talk about, I want you to talk about your Hockey for Heroes fundraiser that you're doing.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So it's for the Heart and Stroke Foundation. So it's obviously for a good cause. A really good buddy of mine, Scott Hickey, asked me if I wanted to play. So essentially how it works is you fundraise for the Heart and Stroke Foundation, and then the fundraising, by virtue of doing it, you get the opportunity to have a former NHL player on your team. So the NHL players attending the Moncton tournament this year, where I live, we've got former Flames captain Mark Giordano, former Flames Darren McCarty, Gary Lehman, Brian Skridland, Alexei Kovalev is probably the sexiest name that's going to be playing. Right, Kozlinski. I'm trying to think who else was in there. Oh, Cliff Ronning was a cool one. He was just added.
I mean,
Really cool one. Yeah,
He's
I
a
really
good-
liked Cliff Ronning. Yeah. So the way it works, if I raise $2,000, I get a free Warrior stick, which is cool. I'm well on my way to doing that. If I raise 3,000, I'll be participating in the shootout on the Sunday. So this is May 31st weekend. If I raise
We need
5,000,
video. If you're doing this,
yeah, we'll get you some for sure. And then if I raise $5,000, then I would be playing in the actual like alumni game. So there's some really, really cool opportunities. The neat thing is like they have massage therapists on staff for the weekend. We all have our own locker room stalls. Like you kind of get like the pro experience by participating. And you basically just wind up hanging out with NHLers for the whole weekend. So it should be a boatload of fun. I have a lot of people interested, obviously, in attending, as well as, been offering some fundraising. So it's it's a really, really good cause, and it's really, really fun. And there'll be lots of pictures and stories to share once it's all said and done.
So when is the date again, Kyle?
May 31st that weekend.
May 31st. Okay, so you're going to see on Flames Unfiltered socials. I'm going to be plugging it all through the next month, and let's raise as much money as we can for Kyle. And you know what? Not just for Kyle, for a really, really, really good cause, but also a hell of an experience for Kyle. And let's see how much we can raise. Another thing I wanted to touch on this week. Kyle and I do this podcast because we have fun. And we also do it because we love the Calgary Flames and we love talking hockey. And, we put stuff out daily on social media, and, we get a lot of real positive responses, and we get some not so positive ones too. And I try to overlook them, and I try to look away, and I read them, and I try to, if it's constructive criticism, I am all for that. But most of the time it's just guys, trying to be an asshole. And I guess there's, in social media, we've learned, I wish there was just a social media thing where it's just sports, but we've learned that there's a lot of negativity, and I'm trying to stay away from that. But as soon as I was down in the dumps over a post on social media, badmouthing our show that we just try to do our very best on, I got an email from a John McNeil stating some really nice things about the show, and I wanted to thank him because it came at a time where I was feeling crummy, and it brightened my day. And to hear that people look forward to the show every week, don't miss an episode, cheer on the Flames just like we do. He agrees with some things we say, he disagrees with some of the things we say, and you know what? That's what it's about, right? That's what sports is. That's part of the conversation. And a big thank you to John and many of the others that have reached out to us in the past. It was much needed this week, and came at a good time. So thank you, John.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, John, for sending that. It's really, really cool. I mean, like I couldn't have said it better, Brad. I mean, we do this because we enjoy it, and obviously the engagement side of it can be, people can be real assholes, and they're just looking to try and get a rise out of you. But there are those that obviously very genuinely appreciate, what we do and enjoy the conversation and enjoy the debate. And it's always nice to hear something like that. I mean, I can think of a few times in my life where that's happened, and it's always, a huge boost no matter how you're feeling.
Yeah, definitely. And we also want to thank all the listeners. We do this because we love it, but seeing the likes, seeing the clicks, seeing the listens, it's fun. It's fun, and we've met some really cool people doing this also. So, thank you all. We're back Friday, right, Cal? NHL trade deadline show. You can join me in the morning. I'm going to be doing a live blog on flamesunfiltered.com. And then you can join in on that conversation. And then later in the day at 2:00 Mountain Time, Kyle and I are going to hop on for an hour, break down all the moves of the Flames, which I don't expect it to be a super, super busy day, but we'll talk about all the moves in the NHL that'll affect the Flames, affect the playoff races, and just talk a little deadline. It's always a fun day, and Kyle and I did it last year, and we expect it'll be just as fun this year.
Oh, it's you know what? Even if it's one trade, including involving a couple of AHL players, there's nothing more exciting than your team making a trade of some consequence. Like, remember, you said this yourself. Remember how much fun we had the night that Fairbairn Frost required?
Oh,
wasn't
it fun?
Oh, it was great. It was absolutely great. So I can't wait for it. It's always a fun show.
It is a fun show, and I look forward to trade deadline day every single year. And some years, we've went into it as Flames fans, just waiting to see what comes our way. And this year, I don't know what we'll see. Who knows? And sometimes the years I thought were going to be dead just turned into something crazy too. So one move can change everything. So should be a fun day. That's coming quick. That'll be this Friday. Tune in for that. You'll see some social media posts reminding you of a live show. And while we do live shows, please get on, interact with Kyle and I. We love that. We'll answer your questions and anything that would go along with that. But this week, 3 games ahead of us, right? Because we got Philly, Dallas, and Montreal. Another busy week for the Flames and Flames Unfiltered.
Crazy. Yeah, no, it's going to be a good one, obviously, with all the games and the deadline and the end of this arduous road trip. So we're in for a big one. Things could look a lot different either in the standings or with the team come Friday. But we'll be here talking with you then, so looking forward to it.
All right, Flames fans, have a good week. See you soon. Hopefully we got some trades to report. And all of you have a very, very good night. Good luck on the ice tonight, Kyle. And take care.
You too.
Thanks for listening to Flames Unfiltered with Brad Burud and Kyle Lewis, your source for unfiltered Calgary Flames hockey talk. Keep it locked on flamesunfiltered.ca. Subscribe where you get all your podcasts to never miss an episode. Flames hockey talk every week, presented by Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.